Take it away.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Simon Moan. I'm one of the co-founders of nthWire. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you this afternoon. I'd like to start by introducing you to someone. This is Robert. He's a web developer. In fact, he leads a small web team. He's 32 years old, lives in Manchester. He likes music and sport, socialising with his friends, and he's a big fan of technology and gadgets. But most of all, he and his team love building websites, and they get to build sites for large and small organisations. One of the key aspects of web development for them over the years has been making sure that their work can be used by as many different users as possible. So cross-browser testing has always been an important part of any development project. Of course, now the internet is mobile. Kleiner Perkins presented these data last month showing that 15% of all internet traffic was on mobile devices, and that's set to rise to about 25% over the next 12 months. It's a big opportunity for for any web developer, but it's also a big challenge. I'm sure we've all had the experience of the not good website. It takes a long time to load on mobile. Pictures are small, the text is unreadable, and your big fat fingers can't navigate around the site at all. One of the reasons is there's a lot more choice in the browsers. So Robert and his team will have an iPhone, an Android phone, a BlackBerry, a Nokia, and a Windows phone. But of course, there are different iPhones, lots and lots of different Androids, BlackBerries, Nokias. There are even a few Windows mobile phones now. And then, of course, we've got tablets and other web-capable devices, such as watches, and we'll soon have glasses we'll all be wearing. And there are about 28,000 different combinations of device, operating system, and browser. It's a big headache for the web developers. But they're not giving up. These guys live online, so Robert goes and he looks for the testing options. You can buy lots of handsets, but of course that's quite expensive. Each handset can be as much as $500 or $600. New ones coming out all the time. You can use simulators or emulators. They can be quite complicated to set up and don't really provide you with any more functionality than a handful of handsets. You can connect to servers with remote devices, but it's quite expensive and you have to wait your turn and test when it suits the service provider, not you. Or you can use software tools, but they're complicated to set up, they're expensive as well, and they take some time. And crowdsourcing is a popular option where you can tap into users throughout the world. Again, that's very slow and very expensive. And probably the most common testing option used today is to do nothing or test on the phone that you've got. So Robert's headache is now a migraine. Luckily, we have a cure for this headache. nthWire is a web-based test platform that allows web developers to test their mobile-focused websites against a wide range of devices without the cost and complexity of owning those devices. It's a subscription model, and the user enters the address of a page they want to test. They pick from a range of different handheld devices. They add a version of an operating system and a choice browser. They can have multiple devices set up. And then they run the test. And they get back a visual representation of how the site will look on each different device. But more importantly, they get a list of technical issues with their code for a given device. Now, this is not a compliance checker. For example, if you had a form that allowed the user to upload a file, it could be 100% standards compliant and work on an iPhone 5. If you test it on that, it will work. If you test it on the Nokia Lumia 800, you'll find that the phone doesn't allow the browser access to the file system, so it won't work. There's nothing wrong with the code, it just won't work on that phone. So we've got happy developers building wonderful mobile web experiences for us. So how big is this market? Well, there are 10 million web developers in the world. As I said, lots of them won't do any sensible testing, certainly not at the moment. We think about 10% of that is a properly addressable market. And as we've been showing our prototype, what we've found is that there's another opportunity, perhaps bigger, providing post-production reporting services to large content providers. So if you take the example of a news site like the BBC, they might, after the site is live, want to test 50,000 pages against the top 100 phones once a month and get a report, so that they know as new phones come onto the market, they're not missing out on technical issues. Our route to market, well, for the software as a service, our target market web developers, they all live online, so a big focus on online marketing, SEO, engaging with the tech blogs like TechCrunch, but still more traditional trade shows like Mobile World Congress and South by Southwest. For the enterprise customers, we see a completely different route to market where we want to partner with companies that are selling testing services already to large organisations. And Monitor Hub and Edge Testing are two Scottish companies that provide monitoring testing services. We're in discussions with them about white labelling a reporting tool into their services. They have the sales infrastructure and the account management infrastructure to approach that market in a licensing model. We're just about to go live with our beta, and we've got some fairly significant beta testers. Last week we demoed to the BBC, and they've agreed to show it, sign up all of their testers. We've also got the Wireless Industry Partnership, who are part of the MobiCap initiative. They've signed up to help us build a truly superb product. We're hoping that the beta test will run till the end of the year, and that by the start of next year we'll have a fully commercial product with paying customers. The team at the moment are myself, my co-founder John McFarlane, and John and I set up and have run nthDigital, which is a web agency, for the past 7.5 years. We've learned lots of lessons, made lots of mistakes, and more importantly perhaps, we are the target market. We really understand. We had the problem, and that's why we built the tool. We've been joined by Robin, who has his own small agency, and we've merged in to take advantage of his operational skills. We haven't really focused on the enterprise model yet, as we don't know what kind of opportunity exists there. So these figures are based on just the subscription model. And we think we would be in profit by year 3, and by the end of year 5, with 20,000 subscribers, we could have a fairly significant opportunity to take advantages of economies of scale. So far, we've had a £70,000 grant from Scottish Enterprise, which is a government agency, and we've put in about £50,000 of our own money. Scottish Enterprise will match any investment from the private sector, like for like, so long as we keep the headquarters in Scotland. We're looking for £500,000 to do 3 main things: build the development and support team to make sure the product's great, to build a community of web developers who are contributing to the roadmap. It's important, even for the enterprise model, that we have a properly functioning model, and the developers are the best people to feed into that, and then the sales and marketing effort. We looked at the possibility of a trade sale, and we still think that might be something. We've talked to Microsoft and HTC, very early stages obviously, but they expressed a high-level interest. But perhaps a licensing model with a revenue share to one of the testing partners, or even a competing testing organisation, might be a more realistic route to return on investment. When we demoed to the BBC, our initial reaction was, we've got a cupboard full of phones in London and a cupboard full of phones in Manchester. Why would we need this? And then we showed them the platform, and they said, we can't get our developers to cross the room and get a phone out of the cupboard and test until the end of the project, and you get a bug list the length of your arm. This would be a great productivity tool. It works the way developers work. We think we've got a fantastic opportunity. We're looking for investment, but also anyone who would be interested in joining us as an advisor to our board. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, let's open that up for questions here. So the BBC, when does that turn from interest into a deal? What does that require?
Well, we need to get from beta to a commercially viable product. They've joined our beta program, so they'll be testing the beta version and hopefully feeding back to tell us what it needs to do to make it something that they'd be interested in paying for. Okay. Hopefully by early next year.
Hi. Could you elaborate a little bit in terms of case study, in terms of a revenue model, to show us the value proposition of the company? I mean, suppose that you have €100 in development cost or testing using traditional methods. How much are you able to save on this €100 of expenditure? It's just, of course, just in terms of comparison of size. I'm not saying it's
Our subscription will be something around the sort of 60, 70 euros per month, we think.
Yes, but how much are you able to save in terms of testing? How much do you help the
It really depends on the customers. I say lots of web developers will do minimal testing at the moment, but it's a productivity tool as much as a replacement for end testing. So the example of the BBC, where the guys are building sites and testing it against our platform, for example, they get to see the bugs as they build and then do the final testing on the handsets that they have. Another example maybe, we support the British Council with their websites, and they've got a global audience. They've obviously got a big audience in South America and Asia. We can't get hold of phones to test in those environments. This kind of model would allow us to have access to test against a profile from phones from South America. So it doesn't save us money necessarily, but it allows us to guarantee a better standard of production for our customers.
Okay? Yeah.
So for the rendering of the images of the websites, do you actually have all the different hardware?
We need access to the hardware to profile the phones to do the reporting part. We don't see the rendering as a significant piece of this. We might even drop it. Well, the feedback we've had from developers is they're not that interested in what it looks like at this stage of the production. It's more about finding bugs in the code. We're looking for a way to run, for example, WebKit inside a desktop browser. We haven't cracked that yet. We're not sure we'll be able to. As I say, it's not a priority at the moment. All we do at the moment is adjust based on resolution and screen size.
Okay, thanks.
So based on what you had in there as an example, the rendering of the screen is less important to the developers than the data that comes underneath it.
Yeah. What we've been told is, can I have it without that, and I can get more of the reporting on screen?
Okay, so from that perspective, do you have to own one of those phones to get that data, or do you go right to the OEM and get this list of compliant components that allow you to build your data underneath it?
We could ask them, but we would prefer to do it ourselves. We don't need to own the phones, but we do need to have access. It takes about 5 minutes to profile the phone and gather the data. One of the models we have for ensuring that we have enough data is to engage with our developer community. So, for example, if we've got developers in South America, they might profile phones they have access to there and contribute to our database, and we can incentivize them around that.
Okay, all right. Other question? Yeah, Giovanni.
I saw you mentioned 20,000 users in your 5. I remember well.
20,000 news websites.
It is a percentage market share of
that's
approximately?
We see the enterprise opportunity as being enormous. The 20,000 news websites is just an example of a segment within that. We haven't investigated that fully yet, but as an example, 20,000 news websites, probably with tens of thousands of web pages each. If we get a small...
Could you explain the enterprise
So, for example, once the website is live, 6 months down the line, there is a new phone in the market or different upgrades to the browsers. You want to make sure your website still works on the new technology. So we run all the tests, say 500 phones once a month against 50,000 pages, and send a report to say, here's where the failures exist. And that might be a fraction of a penny per transaction. But, if you get enough of them, it's a significant opportunity.
Okay, it's nice to have lots of pennies. Add them all up there. Okay. So then, really, as you look forward in kind of understanding what your long-term value is to investors as they're looking at ROIs, then really is that looking at that compatibility monitoring as being kind of the long-term assets, essentially binding you to the customers and therefore creating kind of a long-term asset?
I think certainly the enterprise model, there will be a binding through, once you've set it up and it's running month by month, there's a cost to go and replicate that. But even for the developers in the software as a service model, they can build up a bank of phones that they want to test against, and that might be specific to a customer they have, or it might be what they do internally. So replicating those, that device lab externally or with another provider would also incur a cost for them.
Okay. Brian, do you have a comment, question?
Yeah, I'm not a developer, but I've built websites in the past. I'm likely going to build some more. This would be very interesting to me, but not at the price point, because I'm not a developer that's going to build things like this all the time. So do you have a solution just for somebody that wants to test a couple of sites? And second part of that question is, what is the output of the testing, and how can I use that to make the changes to the site to make it compatible?
We considered a freemium model to begin with, and our target market is agencies, and large or small, people like us, and that the kind of pricing doesn't put us off. You can factor it into projects and get your money back very easily. One project you pay for an annual subscription. We wouldn't be opposed to the idea of giving a limited access for free. It's just not focus at the moment. We're not going to make any money off the hobbyist web developer.
What about just a one-time fee for?
But the SaaS model will be switch on, switch off. So if you want to use it for 1 month, if you've got a project you're doing, and then
Turn it on for $50 and
yeah, and then switch off again.
And the other part about the output and how you use that to make the changes?
In the SaaS model, the output is on screen, but what we envisage is the developer community feeding in and having a wiki of answers. So if you hover over a particular issue that you have with a particular phone, you might be able to link through to answers that the community has submitted, or to ask the community, or that we've submitted ourselves. For the enterprise, it's probably likely to be something like a spreadsheet or a PDF that's sent through email or accessed through a login and download.
Okay, any other questions? Simon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Nicely done. Good presentation.